What's up, .NET developers? Do you love the CLI? Do you love .NET? Do you love Aspire? Well, today we're going to talk about the Aspire CLI right here on what's new in .NET and C# with Isaac. Hey folks, it's Isaac Levin here, and I wanted to go through a couple cool things that I've been seeing recently in the .NET space. I wanted to talk a little bit about, firstly, .NET Aspire, but also more importantly, the .NET Aspire CLI. So, for a little bit of context, .NET Aspire is this really cool framework that's been put out by Microsoft that allows us to kind of build multiple pieces of a solution locally, and there's a deployment story as well, but it kind of connects all of the glue for us to be a bit better as .NET developers. So let me go ahead and share my screen and show you what I'm talking about. So firstly, if you don't know anything about .NET Aspire, I highly recommend taking a look at the docs. We're going to talk about the CLI today. So the latest version of .NET Aspire is version 9.4. So I'm right around, this is end of September in 2025. But basically what the Aspire CLI does is that it gives you the ability to interact in the command line with the Aspire framework around Aspire projects. And let me give you an example as to why this is cool. So if we've built an Aspire app before the CLI, we could do some things with the .NET CLI. Like for instance, if I wanted to do like .NET run, and then I could pass in a project, and I've just done this recently, so it'll come out of that. But you basically point it to the project file of your app host, and then you run that, and it'll build your app host, and it'll make it so you actually have a running application. I can take a look at that there, right? So I have this app here. So what the Aspire CLI does is it basically lets you get a similar experience in that one instance with .NET Run, but also adds a whole bunch of other experiences as well. So like for instance, I can do Aspire new, right? But let's talk really quickly about how you get the Aspire CLI. So there's a couple of different options. So you can go down the path of using Bash if you're in Linux or Mac environment, or you can use PowerShell. Another example too is the .NET CLI is installing as a .NET Global tool. Basically, it depends on what your use case is. If you already have .NET installed, using a .NET tool is great. But if you want kind of like a standalone, like compiled binary, like these two options are great for you too as well. So we can do here is I could do .NET install CLI, and as you can see, I already have the Aspire CLI installed. But I can take a look at the version, and as you can see, I have version 9.4.2 and then the particular commit of that version. So let's just go through a couple of examples of what we can actually do with the Aspire CLI. So like I mentioned, I could do Aspire new, and it'll give me a couple of different project templates. So the starter template, which we've all kind of seen, is like the weather app. There's app host with service default, so that doesn't include, I guess you could say, like a public available app. You just get an app host, just service default or integration test. So let's actually go through and create a starter template, and let's just call this Aspire starter, and give it an output path. It's going to create, in this particular case, the default is a folder called Aspire starter. Do you want to use Redis cache? Sure. Do you want to create a test project? And we'll go sure. And what test framework? Let's use NUnit. And then template version, which is the latest version in this particular case, is 9.4.2. And what this actually does is it'll get that template down, it'll create the Aspire project for you, and it'll put you in a place where you can actually start coding. So like, let's just go into Aspire Starter, and then I'm going to open this up in Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to bring this over from this screen. Probably going to need to zoom in a little bit. All right, so what it did, basically from that Aspire new, is it created like the Aspire like starter template. So as you can see here, we can look at our app host. In our app host, we have a builder, we have a Redis cache, we're adding health checks, and then we have a web front end. Like if you've been building things in Aspire for a bit, like all this stuff looks really familiar. We also have that web project and the backend API project, which the web project calls. And then we have our tests. So right away, we can actually run this. So I can go Aspire run. And what it'll do here is it'll actually create a settings file for you. So it creates a new folder in the root of your directory called .aspire, and then there's a settings.json. We'll take a look at that in a second. But as you can see, it builds and it compiles and it runs our app. So we can actually open this up, and as you can see here, we have basically the Aspire dashboard. I can click on that and have all those experiences. So the counter, we've seen this a few times, right? but it gives me the dashboard and all that sort of stuff. And that's just right from the CLI. So like this basically replaces that .NET Run experience. But there's other things that you can do with .NET Aspire. So like what particular example, like what if I wanted to add like a new Aspire package to our particular app host? So I could do Aspire add, and that's going to go through all the existing Aspire packages, and I can actually scroll through these. And there's a ton here, like there's ones for Dapper and Docker and Elasticsearch and Kafka and Node.js and Oracle, Python, right? And so these are all available like hosting packages. So if you want to host different kinds of applications or different kinds of containers in your solution. So like that's a really, really cool thing. So I'm just going to get rid of that error message. Like another thing that you can really do is, so as I mentioned a bit earlier, there's, we can actually pull this up and show you what it looks like. So inside of our Aspire Shard project, our folder is this Aspire folder. And inside the Aspire folder is basically a settings.json file, which we can actually use to configure. And we can point it at an app host here. But there's also some other cool experiences that we can get as well out of this. So like, for instance, like there's this, be able to turn on feature flags in this particular case, right? So there's a handful of feature flags that exist. Like for instance, let me just go back to command line. So I could do Aspire config list, and this will list out all the things that are in that settings file. I can go Aspire config set, and as you can see here, I already have some gray text here. So I can turn on a particular feature flag. So in this particular case, this is exec command enabled to true. So I can set that, and then if I go back and look at the settings, you can see that that's there. So in this particular case, what is exec command enabled true? So for instance, what if I had some custom commands that I want to run in my app host from the command line specifically? Like for instance, if I want to start a resource being either a project or a container, in this particular case, if I want to run some commands using like other CLIs. So I could do something like Aspire exec, and then let's just go resource heroes API. So like in this particular case, so I can do .NET exec resource, and let's just take a look at one of the resources that are in here. So an app host, there's a resource called web frontend. So I could take a look at web front end, and that 2 dashes to basically say that I'm going to pass in a custom command, and I could do like .NET build in here. So like this is just an example. Like basically what I'm saying is that, okay, for this web front end project that I have, I want to run .NET build on specifically. And this is really powerful if I wanted to do things like if I wanted to run in the future, if I had an NPM project, if I wanted to run like an NPM install from the CLI, or if I wanted to do like Entity Framework migrations from there. But as you can see, like from the command line, I was able to do that. And this actually, it just isn't similar to like .NET build, but actually runs .NET build from the context of our web front end, so it takes into account the app hosts and all these other cool things. And another cool thing, like let's say for instance we have this application and we want to publish it. So let's just go through the process of publishing that. So in this particular case, this is a web application, so maybe I want to build like a Docker container for it. So I can do something like Aspire add, and then go for here, and then I can scroll down and get the Docker hosting package. I'm going to pick 9.4.2. And this is going to add Aspire integration for Docker. So I can actually look in our app host now. And as you can see, there's a package reference for Docker. And then I just need to wire this up. So I just go builder dot add Docker compose environment. And then I just give it a name. Let's just give it Docker compose. Let's not have the YAML there. And so basically what this will do now is I can actually kick off a publishing task, and it'll actually generate a Docker compose environment for me. So let's just go back to my CLI, and I can go Docker publish. Oops, not Docker publish, Aspire publish. All right, and this is gonna it's gonna take a look at that build host, and it's gonna analyze the model. It says a distributed application for it's found one resource that supports publishing, Docker Compose environment resource. It's going to check the health of Docker. It's going to build an image, and then it's going to generate an image. So if you take a look at our Docker Compose, as you can see here now, we have the Aspire dashboard image, we have the Redis image, and then we're actually building out our API services and using a Docker network to be able to connect the web front end to the back end. And this is cool because this is like the first step in kind of the continuing of the story, right? Like in the future, maybe we could publish to Azure Container Apps or some other cloud resource, right? We can deploy it and using the publish manifest or the publishing documents that we created a bit earlier. One of the things I would think is even more powerful about the CLI is that like it doesn't just work for like Aspire new project, right? Like you can use the Aspire CLI for existing projects. So let's go back here. So I have, let me just go back. So I have this project. It's a kind of this project that I use for demos. Basically, it's an Aspire app. We can actually just open up a Visual Code. It'd be easier to kind of explain what I'm showing you. All right. So basically I have an API, I have a web app that's an Angular, and then I have a database service or a SQL container, and then a migration service. So what the app host looks like, just go down to the app host, it's pretty simple, right? So I have a SQL server with a database, and then I have an API that hits the database, and then I have an NPM app, which is, like I said, is Angular, and then I have this other project that basically allows me to run migrations on it. So if I was to just do Aspire run here, same sort of thing, right? So it opens up the dashboard, and I have basically all the same experiences, right? So that gives me an opportunity to like use it with new apps today, which I think is pretty cool. So, that's what I really wanted to show. There's some cool stuff going on in this space, Aspire CLI related. And 9.5 is right around the corner. I just showed you some of the 9.4. There's probably going to be some cool stuff coming out in 9.5. So that's the Aspire CLI. I hope you play around with it. And if you have any questions, be sure to comment down below and like, subscribe, and share with your friends. And I hope you have a great day. Take care.